Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
All right, we are back yet again. It is the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, episode 107. I am your Trek Lord of West Michigan, Commodore of the USS Grand Petoskey, Charlie Carden, coming at you with two of my awesome cohorts this week. I have the indefatigable Missy Merchant on my left. Good evening.
Good evening, Charlie, and everyone.
Good to see you. And from the windy city of Chicago, Jen Watson, how are we?
Hello, I'm doing great.
All right. We've got some good stuff to talk about tonight. We are wrapping up the second season of Strange New Worlds, and at this point, the last Strange New Worlds, I'm afraid that we're going to see for at least a year due to the strikes, although I did read a headline just before we got on that said that production is ready to resume when the strikes are over. That could just be a soundbite. Who knows if it's actually true? Let's hope it's true. But that still has to end first. So fingers crossed on that. As always, we like to do when I kick off the show, I want to give some special love and appreciation to our Patreons, the folks that do make it possible, not only for myself, but actually both of my co-hosts, one of whom happens to be one of our top tier Patreons, to make great additional content. We really do enjoy that. You actually can visit patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, do a 7-day trial to sample our content. And if you like it, feel free to stay on board. On our BFFs level, we have the awesome Nias family, Sean, Stella, and Henry, Missy Merchant, who you might know, and Missy's friend, Andy Milliken. Over on the Best Buds level, Jamie Prinky is also one of our top tier Patreons. So we are very grateful for that. Once again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Opt for a free trial, choose any level, and get access to our stuff and check us out. So, all right. Well, with that, with the business part out of the way, let's get on to our news story this week. I was fortunate enough, again, to get a screener of Lower Decks from the fine folks at Viacom. I want to give a shout out to my friend and fellow USS Grand Petoskey crewmate Kurt Krug, who is a journalist who introduced me to some folks at Viacom and made it possible for me to get my hands on this. But I've gotten to see the first 8 of 10 episodes, which was a lot. I figured, they would have split it in half. But the great news is this is coming up on September 7th, which is just next week. So it's just right after Labor Day and a day before Star Trek Day, of which we typically will do a special edition to talk about it. But I'm not really sure how much news there's going to be on this year's Star Trek Day with the strike and everything. But you know what? I think that'll be interesting in and of itself. But anyway, because these images are released, I feel comfortable talking about it. Episode 1 is called Tuvix. TWOVIX, and the entire episode is based around the Starship Voyager, and it is chock filled with Easter eggs that are pouring out of every panel in every and referencing all kinds of great episodes. And really, the Tuvix, which is the meme punchline that is the most associated with Voyager, is kind of the crux of the episode. And and don't think you might see the salamanders, but I can't say too much more. My NDA prevents me from saying too much more. But what a fun episode! I was ear to ear. April and I watched this about a week ago. Oh, I'm not supposed to say she watched them with me. So I watched them about a week ago, and they were just absolutely delightful. So, guys, skimming over, and the second episode is an occasion. I'm trying to see if they included an image. There is Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was going to say the title. They have released that's I Have No Bones Yet I Must Flee.
I didn't know it. They didn't include a picture of the cute cuddly creature that's at the crux of this episode, because they visit what's a space zoo, and it's one of those I literally cannot say more. And for the purpose of obviously this being released, they don't, whoever, the person who wrote this doesn't want to say it either. So how are you guys feeling about Lower Decks? Are you fired up? I mean, we're all Lower Decks lovers here. I know, Missy, you've been on with us when we talked about Lower Decks, and then Jen, this will be your first occasion to talk Lower Decks with us when the show drops. So
yes, I love Lower Decks. It's fantastic. So I am very excited for this.
I am trying to not read too much into it because I like going into Lower Decks with no expectations for the season, but I am still very hopeful it's going to be good.
Well, I will simply say this, as I did going into Strange New Worlds, is that I feel it's a step forward for the series. It really capitalizes on all the things you enjoy the most, Easter eggs in this case, and then actual character development for our favorite little cartoony characters, and some winks and nods to some things that happened in between. So that's all I'll say. But again, Paramount Plus on September 7th. If you don't have Paramount Plus, you very likely that if you visit the website in and around that time, there will be a 30-day trial, which not only gives the opportunity to check this out, but then to see, basically all the other Star Trek programming, not Prodigy, that exists is available on Paramount Plus. So if you haven't checked it out, it does get my fondest recommendation, not just because they are so good to me and to this show and to this network. So anyway, all right, let's jump on in. We have the final 2 episodes of Lower Decks Season 2 to talk about.
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. Hello. See, my brain doesn't transition that fast.
So excited for Lower Decks that
I
you
know.
can't help yourself.
I can't take it. Oh, my goodness. Well, Jen, I'm going to give you the privilege of talking about Episode 9. And I'll tell you what, you feel free to read the summary. You give your take. Missy, you go, and then I'll bring it up the rear. So, Jen, go for it.
Okay, Strange New World Season 2, Episode 9, Subspace Rhapsody. An accident with an experimental quantum probability field causes everyone on the USS Enterprise to break uncontrollably into song. But the real danger is that the field is expanding and beginning to impact other ships, allies, and enemies alike. Apologies, I appear to be singing.
Well, how do you really feel?
Yeah. I mean, this is the most fun that I've had since the Lower Decks crossover. But
two episodes ago.
Right. I mean, right. But Strange New Worlds is just delivering episode after episode. There has not been a dud yet. There's been some that I've liked slightly less than others, but I'm amazed. I'm astounded.
I mean, I had the same input after I saw, the first 6 came in the first batch, and I was sprinkling it, not only talking to you guys, but then also, talking to the internet in general, saying this is really delivering. There was one guy I remembered when I first posted on some social site, I said, this is a huge improvement. And the guy's like, well, the guy was really pissed that I said it was a huge improvement, but I'm like, I don't know why that would make anybody mad. That's my opinion. And it's interestingly enough, people seem to be agreeing with me after the fact. So I don't know. Any other thoughts? I mean, what were your favorite? What was the thing that made it this so fun for you? What really delivered?
I love the fact that the singing was there was a in-universe reason for the singing, like there was on the Buffy musical Once More with Feeling, that they were confused by it, that they were trying to work it out in song also. That it followed the rules of a musical. They had, like they were saying on the actual episode, when characters can't speak, when they're so overcome with emotion that they can't speak, they start to sing. When they're so overcome with that, when they can't sing, then they dance. There's a quote, I can't recall exactly what it is, but it's along those lines. And this definitely followed those rules. It followed a structure of a musical. Like the typical musical has an I Want song, which talks about what a character wants. And La'an got that I Want song. Uhura had the 11 o'clock number where you get that big realization near the end of the show. And the fact that, it's solved by them all cooperating and working together is just the most Starfleet thing.
The power of friendship.
It is. Which is such a musical theater kind of thing. It's And I loved all the songs. I mean, yeah, some of them were the Una's song to La'an might have been the, like, not quite my favorite one there, but like, oh my god, La'an's song, Uhura's song, Chapel's song, the fact that Spock's song is a companion piece. I called it an anti-duet while I was watching this, because it's the same chord progressions, it's the same melody. It's just, she's joyful and she's swinging, and like, she's got this great feeling. She's got this, she's with the fellowship. And Spock's I'm the X, this news really changes everything, but with this very, like, serious, very Spock kind of demeanor to it. And gosh, everyone's so good. Everyone's so good at what they do. I love this episode. I've been listening to the soundtrack pretty much since it came out. So
I have certainly sampled the soundtrack a little bit more than I would have expected. So, Missy, what's your take? How do you feel?
I mean, I also love this just as much as the Lower Decks crossover episode. I actually made a note that Spock's part of the musical, I called it like the Romeo scene. Like, he was the sacrifice, the emotional sacrifice for the entirety of it. His sacrifice for his emotions with Christine, I have to do this and I have to be the X, but this is what I have to do at this point and explore these human emotions to better our chances of actually getting out of the situation.
Yeah.
So it was it was a singing act, but it was still an act of, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or mine.
a singing act. That could be an early favorite for the singing act of sacrifice. Hold on.
I will throw in there a side note that when Kay and I were discussing this, one of her early comments was, Ethan Peck, good sir, it should be illegal for you to be that talented, gorgeous, and be able to sing while being polite.
Right?
the octangle of a threat. My goodness.
Exactly. Literally have it all.
My goodness. All right. Any other thoughts before I bring this one down? I hate to say, but I will be bringing it down a little bit, but it's okay.
I'll say an early screw you, but I also...
That's fair.
I also loved that there was the different meaning behind each person's song. Like I said, Spock, the realization that this isn't going where I was hoping it would. And even though I agree Una's song wasn't my favorite, the line from it, hiding secrets, a skill I wish I'd never learned.
Yes.
To be able to tell that to La'an. And
yeah.
then La'an's aria was just wholly fucking spot on in my feels.
True.
Had to
I
bring out
gotcha.
the tears. And then I like doing a little bit of background research. So it was actually Christina Chong's idea. She was the one that brought it to the production team and said, I really want to do a music.
Wow.
A Star Trek.
Well, that's her background too.
Yeah, I've been playing her EP for a bit. She has a 4-song EP that I learned about when we were out in Vegas because she had it at her table, and I got to meet her. Lovely young woman, very kind. And the EP is great. Yeah, without a doubt. So, all right. Well, little bit of a down note on this one. I was like 50-50 on this one, and I come from. Believe it or not, well, it's not hard to believe anybody who's met me. I'm a very musical person. I come from musical theater background. I was in 4 musicals in high school, all 4 years. Choir for 5 years. I sing every day of my life. Exhaustive catalog of music of any kind. I sing in every episode of every podcast I've ever done. Nothing stops me from dropping into song. I practically live in a musical. That being said, Jen, I am down with I agree with you that they found a good in-universe, very Star Trek-ish way to do this plotline. Space anomaly. We've got to do this thing to get out of it. I mean, there have been more ridiculous ideas of, Lower Decks really capitalizes on ridiculous ways to get out of things. And I get that. We've got to sing our way out of here. Reminds me of the end of the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. It's how are we going to get out of here? Singing! Same kind of thing. That being said, and again, the depths, the bit with Kirk and Lon, my God, that was absolutely terrific. And it's always hilarious to me, people who don't know what the hell they're talking about will take in outrage to social media. Well, Kirk never knew he had a son. Kirk absolutely knew he had a son. Watch the scene where he sees adult David for the first time and he says, is this David? Or why didn't you tell him that I was his father? You know what I mean? So I love the feigned outrage of people who don't do their homework. And in the age of the internet, there's no excuse. I'm not a fan of people very blatantly putting their stupidity out there without using a little thing we'd like to call wikipedia.org. My detractor for this is I didn't care for the songs. I thought most of them were, I didn't like the lyrics. I think and it wasn't, God, all the performances were incredibly spot on. Nailed it. Didn't like the songs. And this was a rare occurrence at two things, because we talked about this a week or so ago on SFU, Oxtra and me, and we were of the same opinion. Liked the concept. Todd also a fan of musicals, even though he can't carry a tune in a bucket. Trust me. I just the songs and the lyricizing just did not do it for me. All the performances absolutely great. My favorite portion of the episode, as I mentioned, was the rawness of Christina's performance. That song I really liked. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately her kind of putting all of it on the line with Kirk, and not even really being rejected, but for him stepping up and saying and showing really something that is rapidly making him my favorite Kirk, without a doubt, is that he approached that situation with integrity. He didn't just say, oh, this girl doesn't know anything about me, but give him a chance to get in there and be the Shatner Kirk that we saw, hooking up with every green alien that came along. He had some integrity, and he said, yeah, I've got this on again and off again. I think you'd really like her, but she's pregnant, and, I got to give it a go. So it leads one to believe that since we know that relationship with Carol Marcus doesn't work out, what that's ultimately going to mean if, Lon survives, if she and Kirk see each other again, if they never see each other again, because again, space is a big place and Starfleet is a huge organization. Maybe they'll never connect again. But that was my pull away that I really like for them. So, but the songs, the lyricizing, trying to make clever twists and turns in this, it's just there were real parts of it that just didn't grab me. But I was very, very fond of how they turn this into a very Star Trek-y story. I don't know that I've seen the Buffy Once More with Feeling. Eventually, I'm sure I'll end up seeing it, because
should.
we've covered myself over on Patreon, myself and Kelly Gentner, who we were at C2E2 and did our Voyager photo shoot. She was our Janeway, is a huge Buffy fan, and we did that together. So much like that show, and Jen with Sequest, we got to get back to doing Sequest. We're going to tackle more of it, and Missy and I have a couple in the bank that we've got to record. So including Daria season 1, which I think is going to be a blast. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was in the wrong frame of mind, but that part of it kind of missed me. But
musical burn, man. It's the Discovery. Yeah. It's the equivalent to the Discovery's burn, but they got to do it with their voices.
The voice burn. Oh my gosh, the voice burn. That could be a better one. Well, while I type that in, Missy, why don't you do us the honor of taking us to the season finale?
All right, Strange New World Season 2 finale. When the USS Enterprise investigates an attack in a colony on the edge of Federation space, Captain Pike and crew face the return of a formidable enemy.
Shum, shum, shum.
I will probably be in the minority. I did not like this episode.
You see, you can be in the minority, and we still respect you in the morning. That's how Code 47 works.
Video feed cut off.
I think I just lost everyone. Am I here?
Oh no! Toot, 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 toot.
We got you.
Okay.
Whoops! Did we really lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Are you
all right?
Okay.
We can see you.
We're good.
All right.
You're good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
This is a testament to the fact that I don't edit, so everybody gets to hear all of this. So Missy, please continue.
I had hopes for the season finale. I always like a good cliffhanger as much as they piss me off in the moment.
Sure.
But as soon as the enemy was made known again, I went, it's the goddamn why the goddamn it's like every season's gonna be the goddamn Gorn again.
It's like the Borg and Voyager, right? Oh, let's go back to the well again. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, oh, what's going to hold it? Oh, season 3, that means we're going to get the Gorn. I'm so excited.
Oh, really? Gorn? Okay, cool. What else you got?
But I will have to say, I very much appreciate Scotty. And so far, like, obviously it's only part of one episode, but I'm really pulling for this version of Scotty, for young Scotty. He's really got my interest right now.
Scotty Doe!
He's a delight.
Isn't he? First Scottish actor to step into the role of the three main portrayers of Scotty. So, yeah, cool. All right, Jen.
Yeah, I was a little underwhelmed by this too, but I think that coming off of an episode that was just such a delight for me, going into this season finale. I mean, it's called Hegemony, so you know it's going to be about the Gorn. I do like what they're doing with the Gorn in that they're sort of hinting at the fact that these Gorn are intelligent. I mean, you know, they say at one point, oh, they're just monsters, but like the whole point is that they're not. That, you know, that's eventually going to lead into what we see in Arena and that Gorn, for whatever that's worth. I like how they're reimagining them as like an actual threat. They're actually scary. You actually do fear for the people that are taken away, and that have to, you know, oh, are we going to see them again? Because not everybody that was taken has plot armor.
Right.
So,
oh, yeah.
I don't know. There was a lot that I did like, though. I liked Scotty. I liked the whole thing at the beginning where it's like, this is a small town, and it's sort of an homage to, in the original series, them sort of reusing sets.
Right. Yeah.
Frequently.
The famous, you know, New York City set that you see in Muri, or you see in a piece of the action, or the City on the Edge of Forever. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, well, this episode in some ways really suffers from something that you can't get away from in a prequel. That is a holdback for people who are purists and those who are in the know, but it's wide open for a lot of the people who are using Strange New Worlds as their springboard to get into Star Trek in the first place. Yeah. Easy point of access. You know, Todd and I, we've had 3 or 4 people on the show that, you know, I end up talking about Star Trek just because it's natural, and he's a fan as well, so it'll come out. And then we'll say we had a guest just this week. It was the Carpool Gaming gentleman who talked Ahsoka with us, that episode which came out last week. Where we said this is the great series that offers the lowest barriers to entry. You don't have to know a lot. Yes, there's some established characters, but it's an ease in. But it's a blessing and a curse, because a prequel with established characters, and particularly one that's really right on the heels of the original series, which is something I'm going to posit to the two of you when we wrap up my big new direction that I'm going to take us in once we get out of Lower Decks. I'll talk about that in a minute here, but it removes a lot of the bite of the stakes. You know, who's going to live, who's going to die. Pike's, you know that most of our crew is going to survive. You know, will Captain Patel survive? You know, if she does or she doesn't. I mean, you know where Pike is headed. You know that Spock is going to be fine. You know that Chapel is going to be fine. So that's tough to jump into a cliffhanger with that kind of toothlessness, unfortunately.
I am going to posit that maybe the stakes don't matter.
Okay, I'm listening.
Maybe that's not what it's about.
Okay.
Maybe it's about how we get there. Because
the journey, like Harry Kim.
Exactly. Yes, to the journey.
To the journey.
Because the same thing happened in Star Wars, right? Like, you knew what was going to happen in the prequel series. Right. And all throughout Clone Wars, you knew, Obi-Wan was going to be fine.
Yeah.
Anakin, you know what happens to Anakin, et cetera, et cetera. So with that in mind, it becomes what happens on the way to that. How do they become the people that we do get to know in the
Right.
original series?
So how the story is told as opposed to
Right.
what the story is.
And
I
how
think
does it
that's valid.
recontextualize the original series?
Which is exactly where we're headed after we wrap up here, and I will tell you all about it. So, yeah, I think that's valid. And again, we're left with a cliffhanger at the end where Pike is standing on the bridge with all the blood drained from his face. The ship is being pounded, by the weapons of the Gorn ship. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen? We may not find out for a very, very long time
For
because
2 years, probably.
it
It's
could
going to be worse than the summer of 1990.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You ruined my summer, Patrick Stewart's unfortunate encounter on the PCH. So, okay. All right. Well, with that, any final thoughts on episode 10 before we go into our wrap up and then my grand presentation? All right. Crickets. That works for me. Okay.
Scotty's great.
It was, yeah. Scotty, no. Scotty doesn't know. I knew that one would make Missy laugh. Missy, I have this, I always challenge Missy whenever I travel. I like a stupid movie to watch when I'm in my hotel room, and Missy hooks me up, and one of them was Road Trip or Euro Trip. I know that was from one of those two movies.
It's from Euro Trip.
Yeah, we were talking about that again on SFU. That came up in some context. But all right, so season 2, let's have a favorite and let's have a least favorite. And we'll start with Missy.
My favorite is gonna have to be. God, I did not prepare for this one like I should have.
That's okay. I
Pass
like
to
to.
Jen. I'll come back.
Okay. All right. Oh boy. Now Jen gets panicked. And if it has to pass, you pass to me because I can riff. I've done it for a long time.
No, I'm good. I think that I think my favorite. Well, my least favorite was Among the Lotus Eaters, and I think just because first of all, the sound really bothered me in that one, but I think that as a story, it was not. It just wasn't as strong as some of the other ones. It was a little bit slow moving. It was not quite what I want from Strange New Worlds, but it was still good. Like it was a great character study of Pike still. So just being my least favorite still is a better episode than, some worse episodes from other series. Favorite. Can I make it a 3-way tie between Charades, Subspace Rhapsody, and Those Old Scientists?
I think a 3-way tie works for me. All right, yeah. Missy, are you feeling your salt, or do I need to go next?
No,
that's up to you.
I'm good. My least favorite's gonna have to be episode 10, the season finale. As much as it plays out in the original, I'm not a huge fan of the Gorn plotline, and like I said, I do like a good cliffhanger, but I don't feel I'm gonna miss not having an immediate lead-in, most likely next year to Strange New Worlds, but not because of this episode, just because of the overall entirety of the show. And I'm gonna have to do a 2-way tie for my favorite with Those Old Scientists and Under the Cloak of War. It was a rough episode,
right?
But the psychology behind
it hit you where you live,
that's real world for me.
That's big time. I appreciate that. I'm right there with Jen. The Lotus Eaters episode was audiologically distracting, while the plot line was very interesting and again touched on something that was endemic to the unaired plot to the cage, which it really took us right back to the start. I also felt the kind of lack of satisfaction, even though
No, episode 2, Ad Astra Paraspera. That's my favorite one.
Oh, okay. Look at that.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I mean,
wipe the slate. Wipe the slate.
It's got too many. It's got too many good episodes.
I know.
That one was such a.
It was. It was
Star Trek.
For acting, it was like the award goes to. I totally agree with you.
For character background, for you would have to go with that. But as far as overall episode theme, it still wouldn't be my top.
Yeah,
This is gonna.
I'm
This
sorry,
is
all of
gonna.
them.
Yeah, this is gonna have to be one that over on X. Hit us up at Secret
Yeah.
Friends You or at the C3 if you want to hit me up personally. Tell us what your favorite episode is, and
Yeah.
we might have to get a poll going at some point. Well, I'll jump in. My favorite is without a doubt, just because of my over exuberance, my rebirth of the love of Lower Decks. Those Old Scientists is going to be my favorite. Having met Tawny on a number of occasions and just learning what a delightful person she is. And then, having also obviously met Jack Quaid, what a wonderful pair, and what a whole lot of fun. And again, self-contained episode, but it bridged the gulf. It's not that we've not had Star Trek crossovers before, because many of the other shows have crossed over, but it's never been this much of a thrill ride. And it's never been like, oh, it's life and death and da 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 da. It was just, this was a genuinely good time in a season that took us to all of the quadrants, or more quadrants of that, of emotion, of fun and adventure and depth of character growth.
All of the strange new worlds.
All of the strange new worlds. Okay, I'm going to wrap this segment up with letting you know that after we finish Lower Decks, because I had this idea right when I saw Hegemony and the new actor for Scotty, whose name is continuing to escape me. I don't know if somebody's got it up in front of them, but anyway, it got me to thinking we now have more than half of the TOS cast recast within this continuum. So what we're going to do.
Martin Quinn.
I knew there was a Quinn in there, or I knew there was a Martin. I had one part, but not the other, but I don't remember which part it was. What we're going to do, headed into 2024, we are going to look at a potential reboot of TOS with these actors. I actually mentioned this on SFU last week, so shame on you guys for not listening. I hinted at it, I should say. So what we're going to do, and again, we have a rotating stable of guest hosts here, so whoever is going to commit to being on, we will each take an episode, or maybe 2 or 3 episodes within a season. So like, for example, season 1 had 30 episodes. Give me 5 that if somebody said, give me 5 scripts to remake, which 5 would you choose? And we'll split it up into segments. So we may do a total of 15 for season 1, but we'll split it up over 3 episodes. We with no new content, we really got to stretch. And we'll take a break when Star Trek Discovery comes on, and then when that's over, we'll go right back to it. And so that'll take us through the entirety of the series. But the only people that we're missing is Chekhov, Sulu, and McCoy. But we have everybody else, including Mabenga, who was a guest actor who only appeared in a couple of episodes of TOS. So
and Rand. I know Rand wasn't in it much, but she was a named character still.
Right, exactly correct. So. Yeah, she wasn't also starring. So so I'm giving you guys and my other, our 2 other guest hosts, if you happen to be listening, now's the time to start sharpening your pencil. Go back, look at those TOS episodes, and figure out which one of them you think really deserves a 21st century repenciling. So
I can think of a few off the top of my head.
All right. I can't wait. Well, leave them wanting more. Keep saving it. All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up the first segment of the show, and we're going to say goodbye to Missy. And then Jen and I are going to come back and talk to you about Star Trek The Next Generation. Missy, where do people find you out there?
I'm on all the socials. I'm most active on Instagram at MamaMerch33.
Awesome. Good deal. All right. Well, we will pause for station identification, and we will be right back. Next Generation, Season 4, Part 1. This is the 1990 to 1991 series. Now, Jen, I doubt very much, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you were watching this the first time around.
I was not actually watching this first time.
I understand, and reveal of your age is completely unnecessary. I was, and I mentioned this before, I was not a regular TNG viewer throughout the 7 years. I was in 6th grade when TNG came on in 1987. I watched most of the first season. I think I got into the second season, and I dropped off at some point. I remember watching The Best of Both Worlds, the cliffhanger, which is going to kick off what we talk about. And then I kind of drifted my way through it, caught it here and there. And it wasn't until early in the 5th season that something clicked with me, and I was watching it every week, recording it on my VCR and pausing out the commercial so I could go back and watch it and watch it and watch it. As opposed to DS9, which I watched start to finish every week, taped every episode. Voyager, I dropped out for a while and came back, which I know I've mentioned before. But yeah, it was during this time that I was not a super active viewer, but as we're going to see, these are, in my opinion, some of the most powerful episodes of the series. So, let's jump right on into it. And it's funny, of the 6-pack, I actually didn't bother to watch the Best of Both Worlds Part 2 because I have seen it so many times that I could probably read the script to you if I had to. But I'll kick it off by reading the summary. Episode 1 is the Best of Both Worlds Part 2. Directed by Cliff Bowl, regular of the series. Written by Michael Piller, one of the superstars of the Star Trek universe. From September of 1990, Picard is rescued from the Borg as the Enterprise races to save Earth. Data interfaces with the half-Borg Picard to find a way to shut down the Borg ship. Guest star Elizabeth Dennehy, who we've interviewed for our Patreon, lovely woman, as Starfleet Commander Shelby. So this was Star Trek's first honest-to-God cliffhanger. It wasn't the first two-parter because the first two-parter lent itself to the menagerie in season 1 of the original series, which really just recycled the cage. So it both was and it wasn't a true two-parter. It was kind of like, and with 40% new footage. But this was the first. We've talked about this many, many times. This is one of the most famous segments of Star Trek in general. It went very, very far in our bracket challenge back in episode 100. So I'll ask you this question, Jen. If you were to contrast the first part and the second part of the Best of Both Worlds, which was the better story?
I do like the second half.
Yeah.
I think there's a solid resolution to, Picard getting rescued, of course, but I really like the way that the episode ends also, where there's some uncertainty and you're not quite sure where do we go from here.
Right.
I like the way that feels. It's especially unique for episodic television at the time.
Sure.
Especially because, the next couple episodes, which we will talk about, do kind of address some of that.
Right.
It's really neat to have the repercussions set up. I really liked the struggle within Riker in this one also. Obviously in the first one, he's like, well, he says to fire, and that's where it drops out. But he still has to wrestle with this decision of this is Picard, and how do I deal with this? And I'm the captain now, but I wish this was different circumstances. And this is really his story. And, and I like that. I like seeing this conflict in him, where he's not just, there's other episodes that do show him in a conflict, but I think that, in retrospect, the stuff about Riker that stands out is, Angel One type stuff where he's in the,
he's showing off the goods.
Well, Riker's supposed to be like the Kirk of Next Generation,
the
right?
man, the man's man, all man all the time.
So to have this struggle in him, I liked seeing that. It really developed him as a character, and it is a really good furthering of the working relationship between Riker and Picard, as we will see as the series continues.
Right. This episode, and then really getting into the next one, really underscores just how brilliant Whoopi Goldberg is as Guinan. April and I April was watching the next episode with me, and there are a few pivotal scenes with Guinan in them, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the scene in the ready room with Riker and with Guinan is, when she coins the term, talking about Picard and letting him go, and she simply asks him, did he ever tell you why we're so close? And Riker says, no, Picard's a very private guy. You would expect he would never talk about such a thing. And she says, well, let me just say that, long pause, our relationship is more than friendship. It's more than family. And I will let him go. Because that was the purpose of Guinan's whole being there, is to say, hey, you have to, use the Force, let go of distractions because, all the chips are on the table. Poker analogy. Riker is captain, loved Riker as captain, really super not happy how he even ends the episode saying, everybody's wondering about my next job and my career plans are my own, but it's great to know I have some options. And in the next episode, he's right back to doing his exact same gig with absolutely no addressing to it. perfectly understandable in regards of episodic television, because again, if he became a captain, he'd go off on his own, so-and-so, and they weren't really prepared to do that at this point, though that has manifested itself in other ways in other series of having the characters in different settings on an ongoing basis and having people come back together. So, but yeah, Best of Both Worlds overall is an epic, unmatched, and just really sets the table for, two-part Trek epics that follow. And there will be a time in the show that we will be tackling probably in segment 1, specifically Star Trek epics. And we will come back to this as a two-parter or as a single piece at one point. But, yeah, I asked you the question, which one is better? I don't know if I can answer it. There's so many fantastic performances and concepts in this.
Yeah.
The Borg aren't quite as, the Borg are as new at this point. So they're not as ground down overused as they become in Voyager, because it's like, well, we need another story with Seven because she's the most popular character. So now another Borg widget falls off, or, she needs to get a new car battery or something. You know what I mean? It's just, so at least within this, the Borg are scary. They're mysterious. They're unstoppable.
They are. They don't know what they're dealing with. And
Right.
there is a point in this episode too where Data's talking about, their commands come from, and he's cut off.
Right.
And it's like, well, in retrospect, that could very well be the Queen.
Right.
It's just, that she's not established at this point. So we don't know,
it would have
still,
to be. What else would it be?
It still slots in.
Yeah.
It still fits. So,
Right.
Right,
still hanging on some of the, and you're right. Absolutely, that last shot of, after Shelby and Riker leave the ready room, and he's going to take a sip of his tea, and he puts it down, and you can just tell that his complete lack of ease that we know he continues to experience for the rest of his life, and then even into his second life as a golem in the Picard series, when he becomes a bot. That I mean, there are repercussions that begin here that drive the plot line of season 3 of Picard, with the fact that he had a Borg bit in him that became part of his DNA that he passed down to his son. And that happened in this episode.
Establishes that his reputation as well. I mean, we see that with Sisko on Deep Space Nine. We see it with Shaw in season 3 of Picard.
Right.
It's how does he manage that reputation? That would be an interesting storyline, I think, to take at some point. But just it sets up so much for so much of the rest of the whole franchise, really. Because even like
Very
First
true.
Contact, everything. It's
this is a pivot point by which so many other storylines and just an overall mantra of everything grow from. So I would put Best of Both Worlds, as far as you look at Trek epics, is probably the most important, even though it didn't get our top rating in the bracket. It was I'd have to look back,
and that's my fault. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, that's, we all, I think the majority of us agreed that The Measure of the Man is the finest single episode of Star Trek. But anyway, okay, let's move on to, this is the episode that I did watch, and in some ways it's considered a third part of the Best of Both Worlds storyline, because it's the epilogue. Episode 2 is Family, directed by Les Lando and written by my guy. I was so disappointed that he canceled about a week before Vegas happened, but I was really looking forward to meeting him. I was so bummed I was going to get an autograph, and I've just always been a huge fan of Ron D. Moore, the creator of not only so much of Klingon lore, but also of the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, which is probably my hands down other favorite franchise that exists. I just absolutely adore it. From September of 1990, while the Enterprise is undergoing repairs at Earth, Captain Picard visits his brother's family in France. Lieutenant Worf's adoptive parents come to see him aboard the ship, and Dr. Crusher gives her son Wesley a personal holo recording left by his late father shortly after his birth. Oh, talk about a wide sweeping range of emotions, of family dynamics. You have brothers. I have an older brother. We don't speak. It's a long story. And it's not like it was that way. I saw this when I was, 13 years old. So it's not like I saw that and I thought, oh, that's about me and my brother. And, because we don't get along. As adults, we don't get along. So watching this again just last week really kind of touched me in that regard. But then you look at Worf being a child of adoption and then being from a different world. And his parents are, in a lot of ways, they start off as funny caricatures. His mother is, the fretting, doting mom, and his dad's the big, like, oh, blah, blah, he's just kind of bouncing around and being silly. And the silly portion turns into a very serious portion again, I think, because of that great scene they have in 10 Forward when it's the two of them, and it's Whoopi Goldberg as Guinan, just really showcasing. I turned to April when we were watching this. I said, she is brilliant. Everybody, the line is, everybody comes in here, they look towards that star that they consider home. And I see Worf in here as well. And when he's looking out, he's not looking towards the Klingon Empire. He's looking here. He's looking to the two of you.
Yeah.
That really touches base. And then, then moving on to Wesley, who has, an absentee parent because he never knew his father. His father was 5 years old when he died. This also gave us the modified Monster Maroon uniform that I personally love in cosplay because it's pretty easy to replicate. No belt, no undershirt. But yeah, as we get to see, Jack Crusher in this holo recording, the very handsome Doug Wirt, who we do see again in another flashback during Wesley's swan song called Journey's End at the end of season 7 of TNG. This is absolutely one of my favorites. Just, like I said, just because it looks from family dynamics, it's so many different angles
it does.
that touch different people in different ways. And, real storytelling, and one of the things I think Star Trek does really, really well is to produce different perspectives that you turn and say, hey, I feel that because, I struggle with, I'm the child of adoption and I struggle with what that means to me. Or, I have a tough, family relationship with my adult sibling. And so this really speaks to me, so yeah, it was absolutely one of my favorites. I don't know. How about you?
I also really enjoy this one. Yes, as a follow-up to Best of Both Worlds, because it is one of those things that does address that. Picard is floundering at this point, so he needs to reconnect to something familiar. Unfortunately, the only thing that's familiar is this strained relationship that he has with his brother.
Right.
He went off to space, and his brother's taking care of, the family legacy and having a child. And I mean, this is something that I somewhat relate to. I mean, not that I'm in a starship, wish that I was, but I mean, kind of. But my sister has kids. My sister's married, and she's younger than me. Not by much, but she is. So like you were saying, I did find something to sort of, I mean, we're on better terms, but
I'm glad.
Fact that is the dynamic is something that is relatable, and had me relating to Picard even on his own show, where he's talking about, like, not having kids. I don't have kids. I have cats.
As do I. I have kids, but I enjoy my cats much more, certainly these days.
And I also really love Worf's dynamic as well with his parents, and how I think he sort of overcompensates a little bit by being like trying to be the most Klingon ever, without actually being, someone in the Empire. The fact that he's of his discommendation is stinging at this point, and he's still reeling from those effects. And that's putting him at this odds with, the culture that he's brought up in versus the culture that he wants to identify with because of his, actual genetic heritage.
Right.
So it's a lot of very interesting stories, all kind of woven together. The Wesley thing you've mentioned as well. I have less to say about that, but I, not in a way that it's bad or anything, just there's just a little bit more for me with the Picard and the Worf of it all.
And that's the beauty of it. Like I said, coming from the three-pronged approach, I think that gives it an equal opportunity, because not all the stories are given the same weight. I mean, Picard is the A story, ABC. And then Worf is B, and then Wesley is C, because it's such a small part. But yeah, absolutely exceptional episode of the season. So, okay, moving on. Episode 3 is all yours.
All right, we have episode 3, Brothers, directed by Rob Bowman and written by Rick Berman. October 6th, 1990. Data is summoned by his creator, Noonien Sung. They are joined by Data's brother, Lore.
Whoops!
Well, stealing the starship is the Starfleet way. So,
it's absolutely spectacular how there are zero repercussions for what Data does.
I mean, it's not really his fault.
But still,
that he
yeah.
does. But
Yeah.
it's he's so he's sort of taken over by this homing signal that his
Mhm.
father sends out. And this too is an episode that also deals with family and could
Right.
be, its own sort of follow up. And this collection of episodes really does all deal with family and familial
Right.
relationships, which it all ties it all together.
Mhm.
And it's so he goes back to see his father. Sung is dying. And Lore shows up, and Sung was like, I didn't even know that you'd been
Right.
reassembled and rebuilt.
Right.
So it's Data dealing with his brother, and what their relationship is. It's like you can't really be antagonistic because Data doesn't have emotions. But the point in this episode that really stuck out for me was Data learning that he's not the inferior model.
Right.
I
am not less perfect than Lore. I'm not less perfect than Lore.
Right. Right. So that is like, so I have ADHD, right? And I was diagnosed as an adult. And getting that diagnosis was sort of similar to this moment for Data for me. It was me going, oh, this is just the way that my brain works. This explains so much about my life. I am not broken.
Mhm.
I am not less perfect. This is just
This
the
is who
way
you
that
are?
I was built.
Yeah, I
And
know.
this is who I am.
I was diagnosed with ADD when I was 9, and back in the 1980s, that was you went to a different school, you were in a different
Yeah.
classroom, so it was a lot of learning to function within
Mhm.
that and acceptance. And I think having that experience is what kind of transformed me into the adversity that I've survived in my life, and trust me, it's quite a bit. But yeah, I learned that I am who I am supposed to be, and I like who I am. But
Yeah.
it wasn't always. It certainly was not that way. Feeling so different and isolated, when I was young. So I definitely know where you're
And
coming
Data
from.
is such a strong representation for a lot of neurodivergent fans as well.
True.
Regardless of what form that neurodivergence takes, there's ways that we relate to him
Yeah.
because of the way that he's
Yeah.
different from
Absolutely.
humans.
Yeah. Well, the good news is there were no consequences for Data at all, even though he risked the life of this young child. And at the end of it, it just all got swept under the rug, which is very typical of any time somebody, goes off half-cocked. Yeah, Data has a malfunction. Like there are no consequences for him at the end of the season 6 cliffhanger, which again involved the Borg. But we will get to that much further on down the road. So awesome. Okay. Moving on to episode 4 is Suddenly Human. Gabrielle Beaumont, actually one of the first female directors to work within the Star Trek franchise. I remember reading about that. Story is by Ralph Phillips, not a name that I recognize. Teleplay by John Wepley, again, a name I don't know, and Jerry Taylor, co-creator of Star Trek Voyager. And I believe this is when she was really starting to get her bones into the franchise. From October of 1990, Picard must help a human boy raised by aliens to decide his fate. Wow. Powerful stuff. The boy in question is actor Chad Allen, who was watching this with April, and she says, I had such a crush on him. He was on some show, and I don't even know what show it was. As a matter of fact, when April and I were watching, I don't think she knew what show it was, but she just remembered that she had a crush on him. Because, he's handsome. He's a teen heartthrob, blonde kid, athletic. But yeah, they stumble upon this ship filled with a very minor functionary of a species, the Talarians. And I love this race. They think they're threatening to the Enterprise, but they basically have BB guns that they shoot at the end. That's the level of their weapons technology. And yeah, Picard's like, well, the last thing I want to do is blow up one of their ships, but okay, click. He doesn't do it. But yeah, this, they're stuck with this kid who they found out, is obviously human. When he was an infant, he lived on a colony. His parents were killed during a raid by these Talarians because there were border skirmishes that went back and forth. Talarian custom, conveniently, is that when you find the child of a slain enemy, you're allowed to basically, it's finders keepers. It's possession is 9/10. This is my kid now. So he took this kid in, raised him, and and indoctrinated this kid into the society for better or for worse. And this turns into, as we've talked about in the past, one of your classic Star Trek morality plays.
Mhm.
Is it right to simply plug him back into, he has surviving family. Is it right to simply plug him back into a surviving family? Or is it right to let him go back to the life that he knows and he loves, regardless of the fact that it's not Federation and it's not the way that we do things, and it's not their custom sounds barbaric, and how could we allow this? And ultimately that is what Picard decides to do after this kid practically commits suicide because he doesn't want to go back.
Yeah.
Picard ultimately says, well, I'm going to, return him to the only life he's ever known, and lets him return. So very powerful stuff. But you see, even at the end, this kid has really bonded with Picard, because in the transporter room, something in this culture is that all the characters wear gloves. They're very O.J. Simpson or Michael Jackson, if you prefer, so that they don't have to touch something that's alien. The kid takes off his gloves and hugs Picard or slaps him in the face. I don't know. He does something. I can't remember what he does. Gives him a high five, maybe. Whoop. But I thought this was a great episode too. They are just on a roll.
They are. I agree with the outcome of this. It's about respect. It's about respecting the wishes of the person whose life you're going to be affecting here.
Yeah.
That's just sort of how I interpret it and how I see it. The fact that he's genetically human doesn't really matter, kind of like what we were talking about with Worf too. Worf being raised by humans. Family is not just in your genetics. Family is also in how you are raised, and a lot of times in what you choose.
Right.
And those bonds are stronger. And for him, those bonds were stronger. That was the culture that he was brought up in. It's the nature versus nurture. And I do think it would have been wrong to take him from, his or to return him to a human family just because of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So superior stuff. Yeah. And definitely, like I said, classic Star Trek with that, making the tough decision, and ultimately, choosing the rights of the individual. So very good stuff. Okay. Episode 5 is yours.
Episode 5 is Remember Me, directed by Cliff Bole and written by Lee Sheldon, October 20th, 1990. After an apparent failure of a warp field experiment, people begin to disappear from the Enterprise, with only Dr. Crusher remembering that they ever existed.
Big sigh.
This episode.
Oh yeah,
I do like this episode. This was one of the episodes that I had on tape and would kind of rewatch on my sick days, right?
Yeah.
But in this one, again with the ADHD and the things that I don't remember, or that I do remember, or that whole am I crazy? No, it's not something wrong with me.
Maybe
it's something wrong with the universe.
Exactly.
It feels that way sometimes, but this is there's not actually that many stakes. It's the Wesley's experiment or whatever. That's erase people. It's a fun sci-fi story. It's a cool thing for Dr. Crusher to take the center stage for something that's not actually just a medical ethical dilemma, but something that is personal to her. I enjoy it. I like it.
I hear you. It's a sick day episode. I'll give them credit for again giving Beverly something to do, which they do it here. And then at the end of the season, oh my God, they give her a romance. She has a romance later on in the season. That's not, Picard or something that furthers that relationship with Picard. This episode, but it's kind of a meh to me, because again, you're right. Low stakes. There's no great morality play in it. It doesn't spawn anything. It's just your typical, space anomaly of the week. Which, again, it's a Star Trek trope. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You do get a revisit of in some ways, this really furthers along the Wesley Crusher story, because we get a return of Eric Menyuk as the Traveler from season 1. And we do know that is Wesley's ultimate destiny, as we do see he pursues that life at the end of the series. And then we see him again at the season finale of Star Trek Picard season 2. One of the few parts of that season that I thought actually worked, because it was nice to see Will Wheaton again.
Yeah, I liked that.
So it was was just okay, but I'm not like, man, this is not one that I would definitely turn on. But it's very Star Trekky, so it does stay true to form.
It's a perfectly solid middle of the road episode as
It's
far
like
as Star Trek is concerned.
As Homer Simpson would say, it's a perfectly serviceable wagon story.
It's cromulent.
It's cromulent. It's a perfectly cromulent word. Me fail English. That's impossible. All right. Okay. Let's wrap it up with episode 6, which is Legacy. Directed by Robert Scheer. Joe Minosky, again, a stalwart of the series. He's certainly bigger in Voyager because I hear Robbie and Garrett talked about him a lot during the Delta Flyers. From October of 1990, Tasha Yar's sister, Ishara, seeks to restore our order on their conflict-ridden world. So we get actress Beth Toussaint, who I want to say she was in something of note otherwise, but I would definitely have to look it up. So I might kind of have to do that as we're talking because it's really going to bother me. But we get a peek at the colony that Tasha's from. You know, Tasha obviously. Denise Crosby, who I've met several times in real life, lovely woman. Even got to interview her on the radio several years ago when she was a guest at our local Grand Rapids Comic-Con back when I worked in radio. So. But she doesn't appear in the episode, except I think she appears in Data's little hologram cube. I can't remember.
I think so.
But this is really a Data story, and it's in some ways it's furthering that that relationship, or the kind of the fragments of that relationship, because during the Naked Now, which was the spoof on the Naked Time of the original series, Tasha gets drunk, she gets into a sexy outfit, and off camera, she and Data get down. And this was in episode like 3 of the series.
Fully functional.
So this was a little bit of an exploration upon that. And then Data, even without emotions, grows closer to this woman, because again, this was the first of 2 times that his description of friendship is, oh my God, let me see if I can remember.
My sensory pathways have become accustomed to your presence.
Your inputs, your sensory inputs, or something.
Sensory inputs, yes.
Something of that nature.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Beth Toussaint worked as a model and appeared in the 1984 music video for the Bon Jovi song "She Don't Know Me," and Bob Seger's 1986. Bob Seger, Michigan native. Bob Seger's song "Like a Rock" in the '87 video for something I don't even know what it is. She must have been on some show. She was on Dallas, which is a show I loved. I'm really stretching here. Young and the Restless, Babylon 5, Melrose Place, Matlock, Cheers. Okay. I thought she had a starring role at some juncture, but anyway.
It's that lady.
Hey, it's that lady. Very handsome woman, and she definitely aped the haircut that was appropriate to clearly Tasha Yar's Planet, with that kind of, everybody had a low cut shirt, men and women alike. There was one outfit, low cut shirt, jacket with big shoulder pads, was apparently
no undergarments.
And no undergarments. Exactly. Everybody. Her in that jumpsuit. It was well, just the less we say about that, the better. Kind of reminiscent of the original series with some of the scantily clad outfits we saw on that show. It was like, ooh, okay. But no, I liked it. I liked this episode. I think it gave us a nice touch upon the fact that, yes, this is a family member of someone that we love, but doesn't mean that they're a good person. Which, you know what, we've all encounter that in our life, like, oh, here's my best friend's brother, we're going to be buds, but he's a real jackass, or he's a criminal, or he's going to do something to harm me, you know what I mean? And it's that kind of thing. And Picard says it, at the end, because when everything is revealed, that her going along and helping the crew, and of course we have a very Star Trekky plot, like we've got to rescue a downed shuttlecraft and save some people, and she and her terrorist buddies offer to help, but ultimately they're offering to help so that they can blow up this reactor so that they can kill all of their own enemies. So at the end of it, Picard says, fine, he lets them off the hook, and the lead terrorist guy, she just screw you, and Riker says, well, you're far more charitable than I would have been, Captain. And Picard says back to him, I understand how you feel. We all wanted to see something in this woman of Tasha, and it was something that wasn't there. And like I said, we've all been there. We've all gone out on a limb for someone when we thought they were one thing and they turned out to be something absolutely something else. So it's the ultimate expression of our our human fallacy to want to trust people, which, I mean, you have to try. You have to try, you know, and it was great to see how Data, even without his emotions, really became, you know, attached and learned something from this as he and Riker, you know, had that conversation at the end. So, yeah. No, I like this one as well. This is such a rock solid packet of episodes that now that we've reached the end here and we've got to talk about a favorite and a least favorite, I'm going to be struggle bus on this one. But you want to go or should I?
Well, to talk about legacy.
Oh my goodness! Sorry, I got so rambly. My bad.
Well, no, it's fine. It's fine. I don't have a ton to say about it because, you know, of these 6, this is the one that I actually remembered the least, and I did rewatch it to kind of jog my memory on it. And I think it's too little too late to try to give some character development to Tasha after the fact. It's been so long. I see the point that you are trying to make. I'm one of these people, right, that I'm gonna just go with my own experiences of someone rather than you know how whatever I've heard from anyone else.
Yeah, double-edged sword, without a doubt.
Yeah, and it is because sometimes that works in my favor and sometimes it does not.
Yeah,
and
same here.
You know, it's a tricky thing to try to figure out who to trust just because someone else vouches for someone or just because someone has a connection to someone, just, you know, just kind of just to echo what you were saying too. But yeah, I just really wish that we had more of Yar. I know that we never did. I mean, not really. But you know, that's kind of all I have to say about it.
I hear you.
It's just, This was fine. This was probably, to segue into the next segment, this was probably my least favorite of the bunch.
Yeah, fair. So, all right. Well, then, what's your most favorite? Since you've already gotten that ball. I know it's just stuck.
Yeah, the rest of them are really difficult. Best of Both Worlds Part 2.
Yeah.
Just
I hear you.
As it being. It's best of both worlds, you know, and even as a second segment to it, even just as on its own, rather than just because it's tied to the first one, because it is, you know, best of both worlds. You take it all together, right?
Right. Yeah, totally.
That'd be my favorite, but it is tough.
Yeah, big and isn't it great to have this you know solid 6-pack of episodes and really have to split hairs about what's
like the whole season 2 of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're struggling to find something bad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that Remember Me was kind of my nothing burger, as I had mentioned. It wasn't a terrible story, but it just didn't necessarily go anywhere, and I didn't really feel like there were any stakes to it. I didn't feel like Beverly was ever really in danger. I didn't feel like it wasn't going to work out, which is, of course, you know, a byproduct of having, you know, a regular cast of a show. You don't necessarily, it's not like TV these days where somebody could get killed off like that, but it just didn't really make me think that. And then tops for me, again, Best of Both Worlds following through, but that third part, that family, really blew me away. Because like I said, with an A and a B and a C story, while they didn't share equal spotlight, each one of them had a punch that was something different that I think speaks to the life experience of so many different people in so many different ways, strained, sibling relationships, not feeling like you don't measure up or feeling like you measure up too much, being a child of adoption. I don't have an experience with that, but I can imagine, always trying to find yourself. We all deal with trying to find ourselves in almost every phase of our lives. Yeah. And then dealing with an absentee parent, my dad isn't dead. My dad is still with me, but when I was a kid, he was very absentee, if not in person, then emotionally, as is frequently the case with fathers and sons. And eventually we found our way, and Wesley never had that chance. So that really, father-son stuff is always my button. I've had a really tough relationship with my sons. So that kind of thing always really speaks to me. So that's the one for me. So, good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. we will be back in a couple of weeks to start talking about Lower Decks, which will be awesome. Lower Decks, and then the next 7 episodes of the 4th season of Star Trek: The Next Generation season 4. Jen, thank you very much for being here. Where do people find you out there?
You can find me on my Linktree, which is linktree.com/JenWatsonArt. That has links to my Instagram, my Facebook, my Etsy shop, and my articles for Screen Rant, where I am just recently been hired to write for the Star Trek beat. So I have a lot of fun and interesting articles already up, with a lot more to come. So that'll be of interest to our listeners here on Code 47.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah, you can find all of that at my Linktree. Again, linktree.com/JenWatsonArt.
Well, we may find a way, because it's well past the time that I'd love to add you to our website as a contributor. And then maybe we can find a way to get, if you have a landing page for your articles, that we can post there as well. So we will look into that for sure. I can be found over on X or Twitter, if you prefer, at the C3. Go ahead and spell it out. My lovely wife, April, and I do run the USS Grand Petoskey, one of the largest chapters of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Club. We are based here in West Michigan, but have members all over the state. I actually also run Region 13, which is Michigan and Eastern Canada. If you're a Trekker within the sound of my voice in that geography, would like to be connected to other Trekkers, find us on social media and at a website of that same name, and we will make it happen. All right, friends, one more time, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
And be the Starfleet that you wish to see in the world.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.